Can you see the screen? And can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
In organic, physical, and inorganic. Then I told you to remember up till 1 to 30, which I think you have done. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Memorize from 1 to 30. That was told to be done. And after that, we started with the basic structure of basic representation, how to represent an element. That we got to know about the mass number, atomic number. See, these things, definitions will never come in your exam because there is no shortage of exam questions that the examiner will be asking you this simple question. But you should know what they are and how
Yes, sir.
the application. No need to know the definition, even if they are there in your book. No need to read the definition, but you should be able to identify. That's it. So we got to know how to find out the number of electrons, the number of protons, and from there calculate the number of neutrons. That was what we found out. Then we came to know about isotopes, which were elements with the same atomic number but different mass number. And isobar was element which had the different atomic number but the same mass number, as was evident from this example: 40 argon 18 and 40 calcium 20. So now today we will continue with this sets. That is, now we will do about the isotars. What are isotars? Let's isotar. Okay, did someone new join?
Sir.
Molecules of different substances. Okay, we are doing isotars. Okay. Okay, molecules of different substances which contain same number of atoms, same number of atoms, same number of atoms, and same number of electrons. And same number of electrons and same number of electrons. Same number of electrons. The number of atoms will be same and the number of electron is also same. So for example, let's take carbon dioxide. Example, you have carbon dioxide, CO2. Carbon dioxide, and we can take N2O. N2. So now if you see, how many atoms are there in carbon dioxide? See, we have one atom
Two.
of carbon, no, not two, one atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen. Two oxygen are there, no? O2. Two oxygens are there. So that means overall, three atoms are here. And how many atoms are there in N2O? Here you have two atoms of nitrogen and one atom of oxygen. Two nitrogen and one oxygen. So that means here also you have three atoms in both the molecules. So that's what the definition is also saying. They have the same number of atoms. So this is understood. Now let's see what the same number of electron means. Same number of electrons. So now let's try to do that. See, how many electrons are there in carbon? What is the atomic number of carbon? What is the atomic number of carbon?
Sir, 6.
Yes, 6. So that means atomic number is equal to the number of
2.
electrons. That's why
Yes, sir.
6 plus 2 into 8, because oxygen has 8 electrons. The atomic number of oxygen is 8. So that means over here you have 22 electrons. You have 22 electrons, right?
So you please repeat again.
Okay. See, this one, this carbon, what is the atomic number of carbon? It is 6.
6.
That means 6 electron over here. And
Yes,
what
sir.
is the atomic number of oxygen?
8.
8. That means oxygen has 8 electrons. So now how
Yes.
many oxygen are there?
2.
2 oxygen. That means 2 into 8.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so this is the total number of electron. Is it clear, Mahima?
Yes, sir.
The total number of electrons. So 6 plus 8 into 8, or you can write 6 plus 2 into 8. So that is 22 electrons. Now let's see for N2O. What is the atomic number of nitrogen?
So 7.
7. So, and how many nitrogens are there? 2 nitrogens.
2.
That means 2 into 7. How many oxygen are there? 1 oxygen.
1.
And oxygen has 8 electrons because its atomic number is 8. So oxygen has 8
8.
electrons. So that means here also you get 22 electrons. Right?
Yes,
You
sir.
add them up, here also you are getting 22 electrons. So over here, thus you see that both the molecules has the same number of electrons, and along with they have the same number of atoms also. So that's why they are called isotars. So isotars are molecules which have the same number of atoms and the same number of electrons. Okay, is it clear to both of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
How
Yes,
many
sir.
are there? How many are there? 1, 2, or 3?
3, sir.
3, sir.
Okay. To the one who joined last, what is your name?
Sir, Abhay.
Abhay. So this is isotars. Okay, now I forgot to say one definition. This should have been told first, so I am doing it in the previous page. That is isotones. Isotones. What are isotones? Isotones are elements which have the same number of neutrons. So isotope we had same mass number, same atomic number, different mass number. That was isotope. Isobar is different atomic number, same mass number. And isotones are elements which have the same number of neutrons. So they have the same number of neutrons. Same number of neutrons. Let's see the example. Example will be, suppose, let's take 77. 77 AS. AS is arsenic 33. 77 arsenic 33. And let's take 78 AC. AC is selenium 34. 77 arsenic 33 and 78 AC 34. Now tell me how to find out the number of neutron. We did it in the last class. How to find out the number of electron? How to calculate the number of electron? Are you guys there
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
to calculate the number of electrons? See, we did it in the last class only. That is,
Sir, I think 44.
you think?
The neutron will be 44.
Yes, it can be, yes, 44. That is, we
Mass
need to,
number minus.
yes, mass number minus atomic number. See, we did it in the last class. The number of neutron is equal to mass number minus atomic number. So let's do
Yes.
that. So that is, what is mass number? Over here, the mass number is 77.
Yes, sir.
That
Yes.
is 77 minus 33. 77 minus 33. That is equal to 44 neutrons. 44 neutrons. And here you have 78 minus 34. 78 minus 34. Mass number minus atomic number. That will give you again 44 neutron. So in both the cases, you can see that 44 neutrons are present. So that's why we can be calling this species isotones. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's see isoelectric species. Now see over what you need to do is that for the examination purpose now, you need to remember, more than remembering the example, you should be very clear about the definition. Because what they might do in exam is they will give you suppose 4 options, and from the 4 option you need to select the isotone or the isobar. The definition along with example they won't be asking. They will give you the molecules, and from there you need to select which one satisfies the condition. Suppose they will give you like 5 molecules, and then they will tell you identify the molecules which are isotars. So over there you need to actually tell about know the definition. That will be more important than the examples. But it's better to always remember one example so that it is useful to apply. Okay, now kindly excuse me for a minute. I'm coming back. Okay, so are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now we will do about the isoelectric molecules. So now let's see what isoelectric molecules are. Isoelectric. Isoelectric. Now this will be a very important concept about isoelectric, which will apply also in the other chapter, coming chapter. So isoelectric are these are species which have the same number of electrons. So species. Now what do I mean by species? This can be atoms or ions. It can be atoms or ions having the same number of electrons. Having same number of electrons. Did your school start or when will they start? Online class?
Sir, no, it is not started yet.
Okay. So species, that is the atoms or ions having the same number of electrons are called isoelectric. So let's try to understand isoelectric molecules with example. For example, let's take O2 minus, O2 minus, F minus, F minus. Then let's take Ne, Ne. Then let's take Na plus and Mg2 plus. So I have written 5 examples. Now let's see whether they are isoelectric or not. For this, you tell me what is the atomic number of oxygen?
8.
8. Okay. Now see, oxygen has 2 minus charge on its head. That means what? It has excess of charge. It has negative charge means what? It has excess of electron.
Yes,
How
sir.
many electrons are in excess? 2
Two.
electron in
Two
excess.
electron.
So that's plus 2. So that means over here you have 10 electrons. Then let's see for fluorine. What is the atomic number of fluorine?
10.
No, it's 9. The atomic number of fluorine is 9.
Yes, sir.
And it has minus 1 charge is extra. So plus 1. That means 1 electron is extra. So this is also having 10 electrons. Now what is the atomic number of neon? It is
It's
simply
10.
10. It is 10.
10.
So this also has 10 electrons. Now what is the atomic number of sodium?
11.
11.
It is 11. And sodium is C, positive. So what do you mean by the positive charge? That means it is short of 1 electron. 1 electron is shortage. It is in shortage
sir.
of 1 electron. So that means minus 1.
Yes.
So that's why here also you are getting 10 electron. And for magnesium, you are getting 12. -2 because there is a shortage of 2 electrons with the +2 charge. So that's why you are getting 10 electrons. So as you see that in all the examples that I have drawn, be it an atom or an ion, be it an ion, simple neutral atom or a cation, in all the species there are 10 electrons. So that's why we call them isoelectric species. Okay? So that's why they are known as the isoelectric species. Is it clear to every one of you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So we have done the basic thing, that is isotope, isobar, isotones, isoelectric, and isotars. Now let's see to the other topics. What do you mean by other topics? Now we will come to the main atomic structure part. Not the main atomic structure, still we'll be doing the other things about atomic structure only. That is, see, as I told in the first class only, that this chapter is going to be like a scientific history type of chapter. That means one scientist did a work, then his work was modified by another scientist, then another scientist came. Like this way, we will study. We'll study also in a kind of chronological manner, so as to see how the structure of an atom developed. So, for that, what you need to think is, before atoms, it was actually thought that atom is the smallest unit of an element. Atoms cannot be subdivided into anything else. Atom is the smallest that can be possible. Long time back, this was what was thought, that atom is undivisible. It cannot be made into smaller particles, and it's the smallest thing that is available. It cannot be divided. But today we know that atom can be divided, and inside the atom we have electrons, protons, neutrons, and many other subatomic particles, right?
Yes, sir.
So inside
Yes, sir.
atom we have many other subatomic particles. That means what the conception was, the atom is undividable, that became changed. Why did it change? Because certain subatomic particles were discovered. So the first discovery that came was the cathode rays by J.J. Thomson. So the first discovery that came was the discovery of cathode rays. Cathode rays by J.J. Thomson. The discovery of cathode rays by J.J. Thomson. So let's draw his experimental setup first, then I will explain. Have you done this experiment in lower classes, the cathode ray experiment?
Don't
Sir, not
remember, sir.
remember, sir.
Okay. This is a very basic chapter in the sense that even when you are going to class 11, you cannot afford to forget this chapter. Okay, this is so very basic, like the ABC of chemistry, no? The periodic
Okay, sir.
table, chemical bonding, and atomic structure. These chapters are very, very basic. You cannot afford to forget this chapter. It's like ABC. ABC. And did you get your books?
No, sir,
No,
not
sir.
yet.
Not yet, sir.
Now the shops are closed, or are they open?
It's closed.
Okay.
Sir, but it is not available in shops also.
Acha. So what you can do is that first of all you can read this only, because these are like quite self-sufficient to read. But obviously books are books. Note can never be a supplement of books, that I believe. Note can be used for quick revision, but that cannot be a substitute for book. So what you can do is that you can download the NCERT book. Okay, NCERT book is already available for free download in government website. That is in your CBSE website. You just go to Google and write atomic structure NCERT PDF, and the first website that you get, that is of the CBSE website. From there you can easily download this book so that you can read from there for the time being. Like this way you can get the entire book only of 11, 12, all the subjects you can get. Okay, so you can try that one. So this is a kind of experimental setup. So now what is this? This is a vacuum pump. So what is the work of a vacuum pump? The work of a vacuum pump is to suck out air. Okay? Vacuum means it will actually create a vacuum inside. That means how will it do? It will suck out the air from the tube. So this is to vacuum pump. To vacuum pump. Okay. Now what is this thing? This is called a discharge tube. This is a glass apparatus, and this type of setup, this type of instrument is known as a discharge tube. And this is around a 0.5 meter, 0.5 meter long discharge tube. It's a 0.5 meter long discharge tube. .5 meter long discharge tube. Now, what do I mean by this? You have learned it in physics. What is this?
Battery.
The battery. But when I have given this dot line within the batteries, then it means that it is a battery, but there are many batteries over here. So this is a high voltage source. High voltage source is being provided with the help of these batteries. We have done this type of representation in physics, in current electricity. So this is high voltage source. And what is the voltage? The voltage was kept at around 10,000 volts. Around 10,000 volts. So it's a very high voltage. 10,000 volts. Now, now the small line represents a negative terminal. So that means if this is negative, that means this is also going to become negative. This is a negative terminal.
Yes.
And the longer line represents the positive terminal. That means this will become positive. So that means this is positive. Okay. So now the negative terminal is known as the cathode. So the negative terminal is known as cathode. So this negative terminal is known as cathode. And this positive plate is known as the anode.
Anode.
Okay, so this is cathode, the negative terminal, and anode being the positive terminal. Okay. Now let's see. So we have done the experimental diagram. Now we will see the what is actually happening. So the thing is that Thomson did this experimental setup. Okay, and he found that normal pressure, when the pressure was kept at normal atmospheric pressure, nothing happened. There was no flow of electricity. Why was there no flow of electricity? Because you see, the circuit is not joined only. The cathode ends here and the anode here, is ending here. In between, nothing is there. Nothing is there to complete the circuit. So that's why at normal atmospheric pressure, he observed that there is no flow of electricity. Okay, but when he opened this vacuum pump and reduced the pressure to around 10 to the power of minus 2 atm, 10 to the power of minus 2 atm, he found that electricity was flowing and a light is emitted out. So electricity is flowing and light is being emitted out. So this was his observation. Then at a lower pressure, he is seeing there is a flow of electricity. If we further reduce the pressure, if the pressure is even further reduced, then he saw that the gas tube actually glows with a faint greenish light. So a gas tube is glowing with a faint greenish light. And he concluded there must be something, because see, since the circuit is not joined, circuit to joined, right? The circuit is not joined. So there must be something which is flowing from the cathode and going towards the anode. So there must be something which is actually flowing from the cathode and going towards the anode. So this is what is concluded. There must be something that is originating from the cathode and it is going towards the anode in a straight line with a very high velocity they are traveling. Okay. And they also further said that since they are going towards the anode, that means this something must be negatively charged because it is negatively charged. That's why it's getting out from the cathode and it is traveling towards the positive terminal. So it must be negatively charged particles. Something must be emitted. Thomson could not say what is being emitted. Thomson just said that something is being emitted, which is negatively charged and it is traveling in a straight line and moving towards the anode. And it is this which is causing the faint greenish light over here. So here you are getting the faint greenish light. So now let's write down the points. Faint greenish light. So this was his experimental setup and this is what he got. So let's write down his observations. So the first observation will be his observations. These observations will be important for the level of your board exam, for the perspective of your board examination or your school examination. This will be important. So when a gas is taken, when a gas is taken in discharge tube, that means that strong glass tube, okay, that long glass tube, and around 10,000 volt, 10,000 volt is applied, then what do you get? Then we see that at normal pressure, there is no flow of electricity. So at normal pressure, there is no flow of electricity. No flow of electricity between electrodes. There is no flow of electricity between electrodes. But then at 10 to the power of minus 2, at 10 to the power of minus 2 atm. 10 to atm means atmosphere. It is a unit of pressure. Just like your Pascal as a unit of pressure, atm is also an unit of pressure. And it means atmosphere. 10 to the power minus 2 means what? 0.01 atm. So at this pressure, when the pressure was reduced, he found that electricity flows. Electricity flows and light is emitted. And light is emitted. And light is emitted. And that number 3, the main observation is on further reducing to 10 to the power of minus 4 atm. 10 to the power minus 4 matlab 0.0001 atm. He saw, what did he see? He saw that the glass tube is glowing. The glass tube glows with a faint greenish light. A faint greenish light. Now, so what did he conclude from here? How did he explain the observation? Because he was seeing something which nobody had seen at that time. So these experiments are like quite old. Okay, this is in the 1800s. So he explained that these rays were emitted were emitted from the cathode, were emitted perpendicularly, let's write, because they are moving in a straight line. That means perpendicularly from the cathode and travel in a straight line at high velocity and travel in a straight line with high velocity. So these rays were only known as cathode rays. Thus, they were called cathode rays. So Thomson said that something must be coming out from the cathode, which is traveling in a straight line and going and striking the opposite side. So since they are coming out from the cathode, that means it must be called cathode ray. That's why he called them the cathode rays. But a scientist's experiment does not end here. Once he found out that something is coming out, now what he has to do is that he has to actually explain the properties of that something, that is the cathode ray. So that's why Thomson also did this experiment where he explained the properties of cathode rays. So what property did they have? So the first property that he did is that he saw that if he placed a solid object, suppose if he placed this object, a triangle, in between the path of this cathode rays, he placed a triangle like this, a solid object. Then what he saw was, he found that a shadow of this object was cast over here. Okay. So it's like light only. If you place your hand in front of the light, in front of a torch light, your shadow will be cast on the wall. So here also, he saw that when a solid object is placed in the path of cathode rays, a shadow is obtained. Okay. So a shadow is being obtained, right? Is it clear? So that means
Yes, sir.
first property, from there he concluded that he said that cathode rays, so this is a property, that cathode rays cast shadows of solid object in their path, of solid object in their path. Now what can I conclude from here? From here it can be concluded that these particles cannot penetrate through the solid object. If they were penetrating through the solid object, তাহলে তো there would have been no shadow. Then there would not have been any shadow if the cathode rays were penetrating through the solid object. A shadow is obtained because the cathode rays cannot pass through the solid object. Like if you place your hand in front of the torch light, your shadow is cast on the wall. Why is it so? Because the torch light cannot penetrate through your hand. So here also same thing. A shadow being formed means that the cathode rays cannot penetrate that solid object. Okay. Now see the next point. The next experiment that he further did was he placed a small wheel. Okay. A small wheel, a turbine-like system. Suppose like this. Small wheel was placed in this way. And he saw that the blade of the small wheels started rotating. When they were placed, he saw that the blades of this wheel started rotating. So what can be inferred from this experiment, from this observation? What can he conclude? He concluded that this cathode ray must be particle. It must be made up of particles. Because if they were like wave, if it was a wave, then the wheel would not have moved. If you place a wheel in front of a torch light, The wheel does not move because the torchlight is wave in nature. But over here, we're seeing that the wheel is actually rotating. Why is it so? That means the cathode rays must be made up of small particles, and the particles are hitting the blade of the wheels, which is causing their rotation. So that's why cathode rays, cathode rays are a beam, are a beam of minute particles, minute particles. Then what did he conclude? Then he said, you see the cathode rays are coming out from the negative terminal, from the negative end. And where are they going? They are going towards the positive end. Now we always know that opposite attract each other and the like charges repel each other. So since it is going towards the positive end, that means one thing is for sure, that the cathode rays are negatively charged particles. So this was his third property. So cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Negatively charged particles. Negatively charged particles. Okay. And what can he say? Now the fourth point is cathode rays. The cathode rays have the same charge. Same charge. Charge is represented by the symbol E by mass or to mass. Charge to mass. Mass is represented by the symbol M. That is E by M ratio. E by M ratio is same. Regardless of the gas taken in discharge tube. So, so the charge and mass of the cathode rays were calculated. Okay. So by different experiments, the charge of the cathode mass of the cathode rays were calculated, and that experiment is known as the Millikan oil drop experiment. So he found that when he did the ratio of the charge and the mass, he found them to be constant. It doesn't matter what gas I am taking inside the discharge tube, whether I take helium or sodium or cesium, gallium, anything, it doesn't matter what gas I am taking. The E by M ratio is constant for whatever gas that is taken inside the tube. So that's it. So these are the properties of cathode rays. This is quite important for your school level examination, more than the observation. Okay, more than the observation, these properties are important. Is this properties clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the till this much, is it clear to everyone about the observation, the diagram, the properties, everything?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Okay, yes.
Sir, why the glass tube glow with a faint greenish light?
Yes, the glass tube is glowing with a faint greenish light. This is because, see, Thomson could not explain that one. Thomson, with that scientific knowledge, he could not explain why the glass tube is glowing. But today, when you have this scientific knowledge, this is because actually what cathode rays were basically the electrons. So cathode rays were later renamed as electrons. That I will just now say also. So this faint greenish light is due to the ionization of the molecule. So what do I mean by the ionization? That means the gas atoms are actually losing their electron, and it is the electron which is traveling and striking the glass surface. So actually what Thomson said at that time, that something is coming out from the cathode, it is in reality it's not like that. Thomson explained it in this way because at that time no more information was available. For him, the atom was indestructible. Nothing can be smaller than atom. But today we have so many particles. But actually, the main reason for this experiment, for this greenish light, is due to the electron which is going and striking the glass surface. And it is due to this impact caused by the electrons that we are getting the green colored light over there. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
But
sir.
yes, but Thomson could not say these things. Thomson just said that something is coming out and that something is actually causing the faint greenish light. How is it causing and why is it causing? That he could not say because he didn't know the concept of electrons or how electrons are evolved. All those didn't know. No one knew at that time. It is not his fault. No one knew at this time. And for him, this experiment was a revolutionary experiment. So now we need to know the values of the charge. So charge of cathode rays, this data you need to remember. Charge of cathode rays, what is the charge of electron? It is minus 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. So this is the charge of cathode ray. What is the mass of cathode ray? Mass of cathode ray, that is 9.1 into 10 to the power of minus 31 kg. So this is the charge and this is the mass. And these were calculated by another scientist using the Millikan's oil drop experiment. Millikan's oil drop experiment. So he did his experiment, which is named as the oil drop experiment. And using that experiment, he found out the charge and the mass of these things. So that means if we do the ratio, that is E by M ratio is going to be minus 1.76 into 10 to the power of 8 coulomb per gram. So this is the E by M ratio. You need to remember the value of charge and the mass. Ratio value no need to remember. As for experiment, okay. Ratio value, it will be of no use to you, but charge and mass will be very important. You need to apply them in numericals. You have numericals in chemistry also. Quite a few numericals are there. Many numericals are here also. Like physics, numericals are there in chemistry also. So the E by M ratio is going to be minus 1.6 into 10 to the power of 8 coulomb per gram. And Thomson said that this E by M ratio is going to be a constant. So now these cathode rays were only after a few years, they were renamed as electrons. So now let's give the definition of electrons. So electrons, now electron are represented by this symbol E minus. Electrons are a subatomic particles, subatomic particles having a unit negative charge. And what is that? Minus 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. So this is the charge of electron. And mass 9.1 into 10 to the power of minus 31 kg. Okay, which is equal to 1 by 1837 times of hydrogen atom. So an electron is 1837 times lighter than a hydrogen atom. Now this definition also It's very unlikely. See, you don't get generally definitions are not asked in your class 11, 12 level. Yes, laws might be asked, but definition is quite rare. But since you are just moving on to class 11, so it might be important for your class test examination. But for your half yearly or annual examination, this won't be asked. That write the definition of an electron. That is not going to come. You will get other things because there are too many questions to ask. So there's no point of wasting questions on these easy things. So this is about your cathode. Okay. So is this entire topic about cathode rays clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any doubts anywhere?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So this is how the cathode rays came. So now we got something negative is present. Something negatively charged is present inside the atom. So now the myth that was there, that atom cannot be divided into smaller parts, that slowly started breaking out. So it started with this Thomson experiment when he discovered that no, the atoms can be broken into more smaller particles, and one of these smaller particles is actually negatively charged. So now again research started to happen. Now another scientist named Goldstein, his name is Goldstein, he discovered the anode rays. Anode rays. By Goldstein. So what he said, let's see, atom is neutron. So he told that atom is neutron. But we are seeing that atom is made up of negatively charged electrons. So his logic was that there must be something which is positively charged, and this negative and positive are actually cancelling out each other and making the overall atom neutral. So this was his logic, that atom to neutral, atom is neutral. But according to Thomson's experiment, we are getting negatively charged electrons to be present inside the atom. So his argument was that if something negatively charged is there, then there must be something which is equally positively charged. And this negative and positive charge are cancelling out each other or neutralizing each other, making the atom as a whole neutral. So this was his logic. And with this logic, he performed his experiment. So let's draw his experimental setup. This is same like that of the Thomson's experiment only. Same setup. He also took a discharge tube. And to this discharge tube, this was the. Let me complete the diagram, then I will explain. So did you get what his logic was? What his logic was for doing the experiment?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In today's date, basically, there's no importance of this work. Because why is it no importance? Because science as a whole has progressed much, much further beyond this. But the thing is, if we do not acknowledge their work, how it all started, then we are actually not learning the basics only, how everything came into existence. Today, there are not only electrons and protons, in fact, there are many more subatomic particles. Other than electron, proton, neutron, you have positron, then mesons, pi mesons, neutrino, antineutrino. There are like more than 30 subatomic particles inside the atom, other than electron, proton, neutrons. but we need to acknowledge their work, how everything started. That's why it is still taught and still their work is relevant till today's date. So this was the experimental setup or the vacuum pump. So do you have biology or computer? Hello.
Sir, what, sir?
Uh, do you have biology or computer?
Sir, in our area means there is no choice section. It is in Port Blair, I think.
Acha, acha. Here you need to take biology only.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And every one of you have maths too?
Yes, sir.
Huh.
So now this is the positive terminal. Your Dingapur also has an engineering college, right? Over there. Is it so?
Sir, not
Sir,
there.
no idea.
Uh-huh.
Not there. Sir, it is not there,
Not
sir.
there.
Oh, it is not there. Okay. No, actually, when I had gone to Andamans, that was like very, very back at around 2010. I had been to Diglipur at that time. There, that time, the hotel operator told that there is an engineering college here. So maybe he made up stories. Okay. So now let's see. So this is the high voltage source. High voltage source. And now this is the positive terminal. So that means this is becoming positive. And this one is negative because this is the small line. So that means this is a negative. So now this side we have, this is called the cathode. Sorry, this is called the anode, the positive terminal, and this is the cathode. So anode and the cathode is done. Now what Goldstein did is that he took the cathode, but inside the cathode, he made holes inside the cathode. So Goldstein actually took a perforated cathode. He made holes inside the cathode. Why did he do the holes? So that the rays could pass through the holes, so that the rays could travel through this hole. Now, what did Goldstein say is that there must be something coming out of the anode also. Okay, and this anode actually, this is causing a red light over here. So a reddish glow is being caused. Reddish glow. So Goldstein said that there must be something coming out from the anode also, from the positively charged anode, which is moving towards the negatively charged particles and going and striking the glass surface. So this was his theory, that there must be something which is coming out from the positively charged anode and it is going towards the negatively charged cathode and striking the glass surface. And he also said that these rays, whatever is striking this glass surface, it cannot come from the cathode, because if it is coming out from cathode, then it will be opposite direction. No? Then it would have to move in the opposite direction, because the cathode rays will have to move from negative to positive. So that means whatever is actually striking in this side, it is actually coming from the anode. The rays that are coming out from the cathode simultaneously, they are actually moving towards the positive terminal. towards this side they are moving. They are not moving towards the opposite side. So that means whatever is striking the glass surface, it is due to the ray that is coming out from the anode. And that is why he called these rays as the anode ray. And now you see, since the rays are coming out from anode and going towards the negative terminal, that means it can be concluded that whatever these rays are, these are actually positively charged particles. Whatever this thing is, it is a positively charged particle. So this was his experiment. Is it clear to both of you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So Mahima isn't there, na? She left. I mean, is an internet connection not okay?
Yes, sir. So maybe power supply has gone.
Okay. So these are the positive ray that is coming out from the cathode. So these are the anode rays. We can see anode ray, which is positively charged. Positively charged. And this one is the cathode ray, which is negatively charged. Cathode. So he said that as these rays, so as these rays are traveling from anode to cathode, from anode to cathode, from anode to cathode. That's why they are called anode rays. So they were named as anode rays. They were called anode rays. Okay. Now we have to do the properties of this anode rays. So let's see the properties. So the properties will be, see, all the properties of anode rays are similar to the cathode rays only. So point 1 to 4, 1 to 3, 1 to 3, I think. Yes, 1 to 3. That means they also cast shadow. They also move the wheel. That means they are also made up of tiny particles, and these are positively charged particles. So this is similar to that of cathode. Similar to cathode ray. So that means these are positively charged particles. This we have to know. Positively charged particles. The only difference that lies over here is in the number fourth point. So that is that for anode rays, the E by M ratio is not a constant. So the charge by mass ratio is not a constant. For E by M ratio, for all positive rays or for all anode rays, is not constant. Is not constant. It depends. It depends on the gas that is taken in discharge tube. It depends on the gas taken in discharge tube. Now this anode rays only were later renamed as proton. So this anode ray is actually the proton. So that is why it is not same. For example, now suppose you take sodium. Think of sodium. If sodium is ionized, it will give one electron out plus sodium plus. But if you are taking potassium, then you are getting 1 electron and potassium plus. So you see the positively charged particle is changing in both the cases. So that means the E by M ratio will also change. But the negatively charged particles is electron in both the cases. So that's why the E by M ratio for cathode ray is a constant. But over here, as the atom has changed, so does the E by M ratio will also change. So now let's define a proton. That therefore, a proton is a subatomic particle, having a unit positive charge, What is that charge? It has to be exact same to that of an electron, so that the atom becomes neutral. And so the value will be, but it will be positive. That's so it will be 1.6 plus 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. So this is the charge of an electron. Okay. And mass, what is the mass? And mass 1.672 into 10 to the power of minus 27 kg. No need to remember the mass of a proton. This is just for the definition, which is about a charge you need to remember, which is about 1837 times the mass of electrons. So a proton is 1837 times heavier than that of a electron. Okay. So this is the definition of a proton. So we got to know that actually atom has two things inside it. One is the electron and another one is known as the proton. Electrons are negatively charged particles and proton is positively charged particles. Okay, so this is the main conclusion that we can draw from here. Okay, and so that's it. So now we have seen that atom can also be further divided. So that's it for today. So is it clear till this much to both of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any difficulties in the parts that we learned? Any doubts anywhere?
No, sir.
Okay. So since we have seen the electron and proton discovery, so in the next class, I think it will be tomorrow only. Yes, tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be seeing about the atomic models. So now since we get electrons and proton, we have got. So now the next thought that should come to the mind of a scientist is, okay, so we understand electron and proton is there, but how are they there? How are they arranged? This is what the next thought should come. That how is this electron and proton arranged inside an atom? This we understand that atom is made up of electron and proton. This is clear. But how are they arranged? So that is the next thing that we will see. Okay? So tomorrow we'll be reading about the Thomson's atomic model, which is very small. Hardly it will take 1 minute. And our main topic of discussion tomorrow will be the Rutherford's model. Okay.
Sir, tomorrow same timing class will be.
I think so, but your sir will confirm it to you. Okay. Naresh sir
Yes.
will confirm it to you about the time. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So then that's it for today. So bye then.
Bye, sir.